The surfboard was still perfect. After 7 years in volcanic rock, not a single scratch on its custom paint job. Dr. Elena Vasquez made this discovery 60 feet underground, in a lava tube that shouldn't have existed when Jake Malone disappeared. The Big Island's volcanic landscape had shifted dramatically since 2017, new tubes forming where solid rock once stood. But Jake's body was here, preserved by the unique chemistry of volcanic minerals, still wearing his wetsuit, still tethered to his board by a leash that told its own story. Detective Sarah Park stood in Marcus Kealoha's surf shop, watching the big Hawaiian absorb the news. Marcus had been Jake's business partner, his brother in everything but blood. The shop hadn't changed since Jake vanished. Same faded posters, same rack of vintage boards, same morning light streaming through salt-hazed windows. Before we start the story, write what city you are from. We are very interested in where you are watching our video from. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your rating. That's impossible, Marcus said, his voice breaking. Jake was at Sunset Beach that morning. His board washed up at Waimea Bay 3 days later. The board that washed up was damaged, Park said carefully. Deliberately damaged, we now believe. Someone wanted us to think Jake died surfing. Park had been a rookie on the original case, remembered the fruitless searches, the helicopters, the dive teams. She also remembered how quickly everyone accepted that the ocean had claimed another surfer. Too quickly, perhaps. Marcus, where were you between midnight and 8 a.m. on October 15, 2017? At Queen's Medical. My mother had pneumonia. His answer came fast, rehearsed even after 7 years. Check the records. Park had. Marcus signed his mother in at 11 p.m., didn't sign for her breakfast until 8 a.m. 9 hours unaccounted for. This is now a homicide investigation, Park said. I need to know about everyone who was close to Jake. Marcus's hands trembled as he pulled out his phone, scrolling through old photos. Jake was seeing Rachel Chen, marine biologist at UH. They broke up maybe 3 weeks before he disappeared. And Tommy Reeves, Jake was training him. Kid from California trying to make it in big waves. Anyone else? Marcus hesitated. Jake was private about his personal life those last few weeks. Said he was dealing with something complicated. Rachel Chen was 45 feet underwater when she got the call, documenting coral bleaching patterns off Coconut Island. She surfaced to find Detective Park waiting on the research vessel, the morning sun creating a harsh silhouette against the blue. Jake and I ended things 3 weeks before he disappeared, Rachel said, her voice clinical. It wasn't amicable. Why did you break up? Rachel's hand stilled on her dive equipment. I found out Jake was involved with someone else, someone younger. He denied it, but I knew. Who was she? He wouldn't say, but I saw texts on his phone from someone saved as just L. Hundreds of messages. Park made a note. Where were you the morning Jake disappeared? Pacific Marine Sciences Symposium at the Hilton. I presented at 10 a.m. What time did you arrive? Around 8:30 for registration. The conference was 40 minutes from the North Shore. Rachel could have been anywhere before 8 a.m. Did Jake ever mention the lava tubes? Jake wasn't into caves. He had mild claustrophobia. Wouldn't even dive with me through the underwater arches at Electric Beach. Tommy Reeves answered Park's call from California, where he was training in a wave pool. At 32, he was considered old for big wave surfing, but he'd been winning everything lately. Jake saved my life, Tommy said, emotion thick in his voice. Not literally, well, maybe literally. He taught me to read waves that could kill you. You were at a competition when Jake disappeared? The Sunset Open, made the finals for the first time. I kept thinking Jake would be proud. Tommy had video proof, competing at 6:47 a.m. when Jake died. But Park noticed something. Tommy looked exhausted in the footage, like he hadn't slept. Jake was dealing with something those last weeks, Tommy offered. I saw him at Pipeline one night, just sitting on the beach. He said he'd made a mistake with someone and didn't know how to fix it. Did he say who? No, but he mentioned something about family complications, that someone would get hurt no matter what he did. That evening, Park returned to the surf shop as Marcus was closing. The last customer had left, and the place felt hollow with old memories. "There's something else," Park said. The medical examiner found a partially healed skull fracture. Jake had a head injury about 2 weeks before he died. Someone with medical training treated it. Marcus went rigid. Jake never mentioned hitting his head. The treatment was professional but unofficial. No hospital records. Who did Jake know with medical training? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "My niece Leilani was pre-med at USC, but she was at school when Jake died." Was she? Park had already checked. Leilani Kealoha had withdrawn from fall semester on September 30th, 2017, 2 weeks before Jake's death. She'd been in Hawaii the entire time. The evidence from the lava tube was revealing more secrets. The leash on Jake's ankle was a Creatures of Leisure brand, not the Dakine he always used. The jade pendant found near the body, which Marcus identified as a family heirloom he'd given Jake, had been cut from its cord, not broken. Most disturbing was the climbing equipment. Professional grade gear anchored into the rock, maintained over years. Someone had been visiting Jake's body regularly. Park pulled purchase records from 2017. Rachel had bought an underwater scooter 2 weeks before Jake vanished, paying $3,000 cash. The device could transport heavy objects through strong currents. Tommy had maxed out his credit card at REI in September for climbing gear, ropes, carabiners, headlamp. He claimed it was for a Yosemite trip that never happened. But the most interesting transaction was on Jake's credit card, October 12, 2017, 3 days before his death. A jewelry store in Chinatown. He'd bought an engagement ring for $3,200. Park found something else in the evidence, a receipt from Jake's wallet for a storage unit, prepaid through 2018. Unit 47B had been cleared out October 16, 2017, the day after Jake disappeared, using his key code. She decided to check on Leilani Kealoha more thoroughly. Social media from 2017 showed her in Hawaii throughout September and October, despite supposedly being at USC. Photos at North Shore beaches, surfing spots, always careful not to include Jake in the frame. But he was there in reflections, shadows, the edge of group shots. One photo stood out. September 28th, 2 days before Leilani officially withdrew from school. She was wearing a jade pendant on a leather cord, the same pendant found with Jake's body. Park called USC's registrar. Ms. Kealoha withdrew citing a family emergency, but she'd been missing classes since early September. Her roommate reported she was obsessed with someone back home. The detective pulled flight records. Leilani had flown back and forth between LA and Hawaii 6 times in August and September 2017, draining her savings. The last flight back to Hawaii was September 10th. She never returned to school. Phone records showed hundreds of calls between Jake and a burner phone purchased in August 2017. The phone was bought with cash at a Walmart in Halewa. Security footage from that period was long gone, but the phone had been active until October 15, 2017. The last text sent at 5:45 a.m. "Meet me at our spot, please. We need to talk." Park discovered something else. The climbing gear Tommy had supposedly purchased, the shipping address wasn't California. It was a P.O. box in Halewa, paid for with a money order. Someone had used Tommy's credit card information to order equipment and have it shipped to Hawaii. She examined the lava tube photos again. Dr. Vasquez had noted something odd. The rope anchors were relatively new, but there were older marks in the rock, as if someone had been practicing, learning the best route down. The underwater scooter Rachel had purchased, Park tracked it down. It had been reported stolen from Rachel's research facility on October 14, 2017. Rachel had filed a police report, claiming someone broke into the equipment locker. But the lock hadn't been forced. Someone had used a key. Marcus's financial records showed those 3 large deposits totaling $50,000 after Jake disappeared. He claimed it was from selling vintage boards, but Park found something else. The money had come from Leilani's college fund, liquidated on October 16, 2017. Everything pointed to secrets within secrets. Jake had been planning to propose to someone, that someone had medical training to treat his head injury, that someone had access to climbing equipment, storage units, and shop keys, that someone had been visiting his body for 7 years. Park stood in the evidence room looking at the photo from Jake's wallet, not of Rachel, but of a group shot from a beach bonfire. Jake was in the center, surrounded by friends. Next to him, barely visible in the firelight, was a young woman with familiar features. Marcus's bone structure, but softer, younger. Leilani Kealoha, looking at Jake like he was her entire world. The detective checked one more thing. October 15th wasn't just the day Jake died. It was Leilani's birthday. She'd turned 21 that morning, finally old enough in her mind to be with Jake publicly. The engagement ring hadn't been for a proposal. It had been a birthday gift, a promise for the future. But something had gone wrong between the ring purchase on October 12th and the morning of October 15th. Something that turned a birthday into a funeral. Park's phone buzzed. The tech lab had recovered partial audio from Jake's waterlogged recorder. Most was static, but one fragment survived from 5:48 a.m. A woman's voice, young, desperate. "You promised we'd be together when I turned 21. You promised." Jake's voice, gentle but firm. "I'm sorry. I can't do this. You're Marcus's niece. Your family." "I'm not your family. I love you." "Please, put that down. We can talk." The recording cut to static. Park looked at the calendar. Today was October 14th, 2024. Tomorrow would be 7 years exactly since Jake Malone died. She had a feeling someone else was counting those days, too. The rope anchors in the lava tube had been maintained with obsessive care. Detective Park ran her fingers along the steel, feeling where rust had been scraped away, bolts tightened, rope replaced. Someone had been making pilgrimages here for 7 years, descending into darkness to visit Jake Malone. Park stood at the northern entrance, hidden behind a cluster of ohia trees. The path was subtle, but worn, visible only if you knew where to look. She photographed the strange marks on the trees, dates carved into bark. October 15th, 2018. October 15th, 2019. Every anniversary, someone had marked their visit. At Seattle Presbyterian Hospital, Dr. Leilani Kealoha was finishing her rounds when security approached her. She'd become an excellent emergency physician, colleagues said. Brilliant at trauma, especially head injuries. She had a talent for staying calm when others panicked, for making life-and-death decisions without hesitation. "Dr. Kealoha, there's a call for you. Police from Hawaii." Leilani's hand froze on the patient chart she was signing. 7 years of careful construction, and it took only 3 words to destroy it all. Police from Hawaii. Back in Honolulu, Park was building her timeline. October 12, 2017, Jake buys the ring. October 13th, multiple calls between Jake and the burner phone. October 14th, Rachel's diving equipment is stolen. Marcus's mother admitted to hospital. October 15th, 5:45 a.m., final text from burner phone. 5:48 a.m., audio recording of confrontation. 6:47 a.m., Tommy competing at Sunset Open. 7 a.m., Marcus calling everyone, panicked. 8:30 a.m., Rachel at conference registration. 10 Shard Biao a.m., Leilani's flight leaves Kona for LAX, but flights from North Shore to Kona took 3 hours minimum. For Leilani to make that 10 a.m. flight, she would have had to leave by 6 a.m. at the latest, the exact window when Jake died. Park pulled Leilani's credit card records from 2017. October 14th, 11 p.m., gas station in Halewa. October 15th, 6:23 a.m., airport parking in Kona. She'd driven through the night, 3 hours across the island. But Jake had died around 5:48 a.m., according to the audio. That gave Leilani 35 minutes to kill Jake, dispose of his body in the lava tube, and start driving. Impossible, unless she had help. Park revisited the climbing equipment purchase. Someone had used Tommy's credit card information, but the REI order had special instructions. Gift wrap, birthday present for Elle. Happy 21st. Tommy claimed his card was stolen, but what if he'd let someone use it? What if he knew about Jake and Leilani? She called Tommy again. Did you know about Jake and Leilani Kealoha? Long silence. I suspected. Saw them together once at a beach nobody goes to. They were close. Why didn't you mention this before? Because after Jake died, it didn't matter. And Leilani was just a kid who lost someone she loved. Why hurt her more? Tommy, did you help Leilani that morning? What? No, I was at the competition. You have video proof. But Park was looking at that video again. Tommy's rash guard was damp with sweat, not ocean water. His hands had red marks consistent with rope burn. He'd arrived at the beach already exhausted, as if he'd been doing intense physical activity before his 6:47 a.m. heat. The competition had been at Sunset Beach. The lava tubes were 20 minutes away. If Tommy had helped lower Jake's body at 5:50 a.m., he could have made his heat with minutes to spare. Park needed more evidence. She pulled up social media from October 2017, looking for connections she'd missed. There, a photo from October 10th, posted by a local surf photographer. A sunset shot at Pipeline. In the background, barely visible, Jake and Leilani walking together, her hand reaching for his. The photographer had captioned it, "Perfect light, perfect waves, perfect moments." 3 people had liked that photo, Marcus, Tommy, and Rachel. They all knew. Before Jake died, they all knew about him and Leilani. Park visited Rachel at her lab. You knew about Jake and Leilani. Rachel's composure cracked. Of course I knew. Jake was terrible at hiding it. The way he'd light up when she called. The way he'd disappear for hours and come back smelling like her perfume. Is that why you broke up? No. I broke up because Jake was going to destroy my career over a grant review. He said my research was fraudulent, said I was exaggerating climate data for funding. Do you understand what that accusation would have done to me? So you killed him? I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But no. Rachel pulled up her phone, showing a video. My colleague took this at the conference. Timestamp 5:30 a.m., October 15th. I'm in the background, setting up my presentation. I was already at the hotel. Park studied the video. Rachel was indeed there, wearing the blue dress from the registration photos. But something bothered her. You changed clothes before your presentation. I spilled coffee on my dress. Had to buy new clothes from the gift shop. The receipt confirmed it. 9:15 a.m. purchase. But why wait 3.5 hours to change clothes after a coffee spill? Marcus was waiting when Park returned to the surf shop. He looked older, grayer, like he'd aged years in hours. You need to understand about Leilani, he said without preamble. She's been in love with Jake since she was 17. Hero worship, I thought. He was kind to her, taught her to surf, helped with her college applications. I trusted him. When did you find out it was more? October 13th. My mother wasn't sick yet. That was a lie. I was at home when Leilani came over, crying. Said Jake had bought a ring, but now he was backing out. Said he was choosing his reputation over love. She was hysterical. What did you do? I drove to Jake's apartment. We argued. I hit him. That's how he got the head injury. Leilani treated it. She'd been volunteering at the ER, knew basic trauma care. Jake promised to leave Hawaii, to end it clean. I thought that was it. But it wasn't. October 14th, my mother really did get sick. Pneumonia, but not severe. I used it as an excuse to be at the hospital, to have an alibi in case Leilani did something stupid. I knew she was planning something. She'd taken climbing gear from the shop. the stuff we use for cliff rescues. Park felt the pieces clicking. You were protecting her. She's my niece, my sister's only child. I practically raised her after her parents died. I couldn't let her throw her life away over Jake. Marcus, did Leilani kill Jake? Before he could answer, Park's phone rang. Seattle Presbyterian. Detective, Dr. Kealoha left the hospital an hour ago. She said there was a family emergency. She's not answering her phone. Park checked flights. There was one leaving Seattle for Honolulu in 2 hours. But Leilani wasn't on the passenger list. She checked other flights. Nothing to Hawaii. But there was a L. Kealoha on a flight to Los Angeles, connecting to Kona. She'd be in Hawaii by tonight. Park called for backup at Kona Airport, then returned to the evidence. The partial audio from Jake's recorder, she'd been focused on the words, but now she listened to the background. Ocean waves, but distant. Birds, specifically white-rumped shamas that sang at dawn. And something else, a mechanical sound, rhythmic, like a pulley system. She pulled up topographical maps of the North Shore from 2017. The lava tube where Jake was found hadn't existed then, but there was another formation nearby, an older tube that connected to the same system. The entrance was near a cliff face popular with rescue training exercises. The exact spot where someone might set up climbing equipment for practice. Tommy had mentioned that Jake knew about the EPO. But what if Jake knew because Leilani had told him? Medical knowledge would have made her aware of what Tommy was using. What if she'd been treating Tommy's injection sites, helping him hide the evidence? Park found the connection in an old news article. September 2017. Local surf shop hosts cliff rescue training. The photo showed Marcus teaching rope techniques to young surfers. In the background, Tommy Reeves practicing with climbing gear, and holding the safety rope, Leilani Kealoha. They'd all been there, they'd all known how to use the equipment, but the timeline still bothered Park. The audio recording at 5:48 a.m., Leilani at Kona Airport by 6:23 a.m., even driving recklessly, it was impossible. Unless... Park pulled up the audio again. The recording was time-stamped 5:48 a.m., but what if Jake's recorder clock was wrong? What if someone had changed it? She checked the evidence log. Jake's phone, also found on his body, had shown 4:48 a.m. when recovered, exactly 1 hour behind. If the confrontation actually happened at 4:48 a.m., Leilani would have had an extra hour. Enough time to kill Jake, dispose of the body with Tommy's help, and drive to Kona. But why would Jake's devices be an hour off? Park checked historical records. October 15th, 2017. Nothing special about that date except daylight saving time had ended in Hawaii in 2017. No, wait. Hawaii didn't observe daylight saving time, but California did. Jake's devices would have been synced to California time if he'd been there recently. Park checked flight records she'd missed before. Jake had flown to Los Angeles on October 8th, returning October 10th. A quick trip, 48 hours. The same dates Leilani had been missing from her USC classes before officially withdrawing. They'd been together in California, planning a future that would never happen. The medical examiner had sent additional findings. The skull fracture showed 2 impact points. The first, partially healed, from about 2 weeks before death. The second, perimortem, had killed him. Same location, suggesting someone knew exactly where Jake was vulnerable. Park's phone buzzed. Credit card alert? Leilani Kealoha had just used her card at a gas station in Kona. She wasn't heading to the airport. She was driving north toward the lava tubes. Tomorrow was October 15th, the 7th anniversary. Leilani was going to visit Jake one more time, but she wouldn't be alone. Park had figured out the pattern. Every October 15th, 3 people had been on the Big Island. Tommy always flew in from California. Rachel always had field research scheduled. Marcus always closed the shop for inventory. They'd all been visiting Jake, separately, maintaining their secret, their guilt, their grief. October 15, 2024. 7 years to the day since Jake Malone died. Detective Park stood at the northern entrance to the lava tube at 4:48 a.m., exactly when Jake's recorder had captured his last moments. The darkness was absolute, except for her flashlight cutting through the volcanic mist. She wasn't alone. 3 cars were already parked in the hidden clearing: Marcus's old Tacoma, Rachel's research vehicle, and a rental that Tommy must have picked up at the airport. They'd all come for the anniversary, just as they had every year. But this year was different. This year, Leilani was coming home. Park descended into the tube using the maintained ropes, following the path worn smooth by 7 years of pilgrimage. 60 feet down, the tube opened into a natural cathedral of volcanic rock. 3 people stood in separate pools of LED light, none of them speaking, each lost in their own relationship with the dead. Marcus knelt by Jake's remains, which had been carefully arranged on a natural shelf in the rock. Rachel stood apart, taking water samples from the pools that had formed. Even here, even now, she was a scientist. Tommy sat against the far wall, head in his hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "You all knew," Park said, her voice echoing in the chamber. They turned as one, no surprise on their faces. They'd been expecting this. "Every year," Marcus said quietly. "We come every year, to remember, to apologize, to make sure he's respected." "Who killed him?" Before anyone could answer, a 4th rope dropped from above. Leilani Kealoha descended with practiced ease, her hospital scrubs incongruous in the ancient stone. She looked exactly like her photos, but older, harder, carved by 7 years of carrying truth alone. She saw Park and smiled sadly. "I knew someone would figure it out eventually. I'm almost relieved." "Leilani, don't—" Marcus started. "It's okay, Uncle. It's time." Leilani walked to Jake's remains, touching the skull gently where the fractures were. "I treated that first injury. Uncle Marcus hit him when he found out about us. Jake had been having headaches, dizziness. I should have made him go to a real hospital, but he was worried about the police, about questions." She pulled out the jade pendant she wore around her neck, not the one found with Jake's body, but its twin. "Grandma brought 2 from the Philippines. Uncle gave one to Jake. The other was supposed to be mine on my 21st birthday." "Tell me what happened that morning," Park said. Leilani sat down, suddenly looking young despite her 30 years. "Jake had bought me a ring, not for engagement. We both knew Uncle would never accept that. It was a promise ring for when I finished medical school. We were going to wait, do things right. But then Rachel threatened to destroy his career over her grant review. And Tommy, Jake found out about the EPO." Tommy looked up, face streaked with tears. "I never asked him to keep quiet." "No, but he was going to. For you, for everyone. Jake couldn't stand to hurt people, even when they deserved it. He was going to let Rachel damage his reputation, let you continue cheating, let our relationship stay secret forever. All to protect everyone else." "So you killed him?" Park asked. "No." The word came out broken. "I loved him. I could never. It was an accident." Rachel laughed bitterly. "An accident. That's what we all tell ourselves." Leilani continued, her voice hollow. "I asked him to meet me at our spot, a cliff overlooking the ocean where we'd watch sunrises. I wanted to convince him to fight back, to stop protecting everyone who was using him. We argued. I grabbed his arm, trying to make him listen. He pulled away, lost his balance." She stopped, composing herself. The cliff was only 20 feet high. People jumped from there all the time. But Jake landed wrong. His head hit a rock, the same spot Uncle had injured 2 weeks before. The bone was already compromised. "Why didn't you call for help?" "I tried to save him. I did CPR for 30 minutes, but there was too much damage. When I finally accepted he was gone, I panicked. Uncle would blame himself for the first injury. My career would be over before it started. And Jake? Jake would be remembered as someone who died in a stupid accident, arguing with a girl too young for him. Marcus spoke up. "I found her with the body at 5:30 a.m. She'd called me, hysterical. I made the decision to hide everything." "We lowered him into the lava tube," Tommy admitted. "I helped. Marcus called me, said there'd been an accident. I just finished my dawn training session. We used the climbing gear Leilani had bought with my stolen credit card info. She'd been planning to take Jake climbing for his birthday." Rachel added, "I provided the underwater scooter, transported the body through the flooded sections to the deepest part of the tube. Marcus called me after they'd moved him. Said if I helped, he'd make sure my grant wasn't questioned." Park processed this. "You all covered up a death." "We protected the living," Marcus said firmly. Jake was gone. Nothing would bring him back, but Leilani could still become a doctor, save lives. Tommy could still compete. Rachel could continue her research. We made a choice. "And the surfboard that washed up at Waimea?" "I damaged it and set it adrift," Marcus said. "Created a story everyone would believe. Surfer dies surfing. The ocean takes another one. Clean and simple. Except you've been coming back here for 7 years. "Guilt," Tommy said simply. "We each come alone, never together. Until today." Leilani stood, walked to Detective Park. "I've saved 43 people in the ER who would have died without intervention. 43 lives that exist because I became a doctor instead of going to prison for manslaughter. Does that balance the scales?" Park looked at the 4 of them, bound together by a secret that had defined their lives for 7 years. Marcus, the protective uncle who'd chosen family over law. Rachel, the scientist who'd compromised her ethics for her career. Tommy, the athlete who'd let guilt fuel his success. And Leilani, the doctor who'd tried to save enough lives to earn forgiveness. "There's something else," Park said, pulling out her phone. The complete audio from Jake's recorder. She played it. Jake's voice filled the chamber. "October 15th, 5:45 a.m. If you're hearing this, something's happened to me. I need to confess something. I've been taking money from the shop, almost $100,000, to feed a gambling addiction. Marcus will discover it soon. I can't face him. I can't face any of them. The shame is too much. I'm going to make it look like a surfing accident. The ocean can have me. At least that's a death everyone can understand. To Leilani, if you ever hear this, it was never about you. You're perfect. I'm the one who's broken. Be happy. Be the doctor you're meant to be. Don't let my failures define your future." The recording continued with sounds of movement, then Leilani's voice. "Jake, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing. This is my spot." "Our spot. You showed it to me." "Leilani, you should be at school." "It's my birthday. I wanted to watch the sunrise with you." Their argument escalated, but the context was different now. Jake had been planning his own death. Leilani had interrupted a suicide. The struggle, the fall. She'd been trying to save him, not hurt him. "He was going to jump," Leilani whispered. "I didn't know about the gambling, the debt. He was going to jump, and I tried to stop him. And instead, "You gave him what he wanted," Park said quietly. "An accidental death. No suicide shame for his mother. No gambling debts exposed. He died with his secrets intact." "Except we knew he fell," Marcus said. "We thought it was Leilani's fault. So we hid everything, created the surfing story. We gave him the death he was trying to fake." Park stood in the volcanic cathedral, surrounded by people who'd carried unbearable truth for 7 years. The law said they'd committed crimes, tampering with evidence, failure to report a death, conspiracy. But justice? Justice was more complicated. The statute of limitations on failure to report a death is 5 years in Hawaii, Park said finally. The tampering with evidence charge would be hard to prove with the body in this condition, and conspiracy requires proving criminal intent, which is complicated when the death was accidental and the victim was planning suicide. "What are you saying?" Rachel asked. "I'm saying Jake Malone died in a surfing accident on October 15, 2017. His body was recovered from a lava tube where ocean currents had deposited it through underwater channels. The case is closed." "But you know the truth," Leilani said. "I know that 4 people have been serving a life sentence for 7 years. I know that 43 people are alive because you became a doctor. I know that Jake's mother has found peace believing her son died doing what he loved. Sometimes the truth serves no one." Park moved toward the rope. "I'll file my report tomorrow. It will say the remains were discovered in a location consistent with ocean deposition. The volcanic activity since 2017 makes it impossible to determine exact circumstances of death. Natural causes. Case closed." She began climbing, then stopped. "But the visiting ends today. Let him rest. Let yourselves rest. 7 years is enough penance." One by one, they followed her up into the dawn light. Tommy flew back to California that afternoon, would win Mavericks 3 months later, dedicating it to Jake's memory. Rachel published her coral research, securing funding that would help establish 3 new marine preserves. Marcus kept the surf shop running, teaching kids to respect the ocean Jake had loved. Leilani returned to Seattle, to her ER, to saving lives. She wore the jade pendant every day, but she never returned to Hawaii. Some places hold too much truth to revisit. Detective Park filed her report as promised. The official record showed Jake Malone died surfing October 15, 2017. His body recovered through miraculous volcanic preservation 7 years later. The surfing community held another paddle-out memorial. His mother brought chocolate coconut cake. But Park kept the complete audio recording, locked in evidence where no one would ever hear it. Because sometimes the real crime isn't what people do, but what circumstances force them to become. And sometimes the greatest mercy isn't justice, but allowing people to live with their choices and find redemption in their own way. The lava tube was sealed by the state, deemed too dangerous for public access. Within a year, new volcanic activity would fill it completely, erasing the last physical evidence of what really happened that morning. Jake Malone was finally buried at Valley of the Temples Cemetery, overlooking the Ko'olo Mountains and the ocean beyond. His headstone read, "Beloved son, friend, teacher, he lived for the waves." It was the truth, even if it wasn't the whole truth. And in the end, that was enough.